1882, Harvard's most respected professor, William James, locked his study door, inhaled nitrous oxide, laughing gas, and suddenly started laughing, crying, and shouting, "I have seen the truth. God is real. The universe is alive. Everything is connected." He stumbled out of the room, face wet with tears. His wife thought he had lost his mind. Harvard professors called it a scandal, but what he wrote that night became the most controversial experiment in psychology history. Tonight, in Part 17, the forbidden laughing gas experiments he hid from the world, the night he claimed to talk to God, and the one discovery that made religious people love him, and scientists call him crazy. Stay until the end, because what he saw under the gas will change how you see reality forever. As William James progressed in the creation of his major works, he emphasized the unity of psychology, philosophy, and practical life. He believed that understanding the human mind was not only an intellectual pursuit but also a guide for personal growth, education, and moral development. His goal was to create a systematic framework that combined empirical study, philosophical reflection, and practical application. This period marked the development of his most influential ideas and the consolidation of his reputation as a pioneering thinker. Consciousness remained central to his work. William James continued to explore the flow of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. He emphasized that mental life is continuous, adaptive, and structured by attention, memory, and habit. Attention allows individuals to focus on important stimuli, while memory reconstructs past experiences based on context, significance, and habit. By highlighting the dynamic nature of consciousness, William laid the foundation for modern cognitive psychology and phenomenology, demonstrating that understanding the mind requires examining its fluid and interactive processes. Habit remained a key area of study. William examined how repeated behaviors influence thought patterns, moral decisions, and character formation. He analyzed the processes through which habits develop and emphasized that conscious effort is required to cultivate beneficial habits while minimizing negative ones. His work connected psychological theory with practical applications, showing that personal development depends on self-awareness, disciplined practice, and reflection. Habit, he argued, is both a psychological and ethical tool for guiding human behavior. Emotion was another major focus. Williams studied the relationship between feeling and cognition, noting how emotions guide attention, influence memory, and motivate behavior. He explored the physiological and psychological dimensions of emotion, highlighting its essential role in shaping human experience. By integrating emotion into the study of consciousness, William developed a holistic approach that recognized the inseparability of affect and thought. This perspective allowed him to understand behavior in a more complete and realistic way. Attention and memory were studied in depth. William investigated how selective attention helps individuals focus on relevant information, how attention is shaped by habit and experience, and how memory reconstructs experiences rather than simply storing them. These observations revealed that mental processes are active and adaptive, allowing humans to learn, solve problems, and make decisions. His systematic study of these cognitive processes provided a foundation for educational theory, applied psychology, and practical guidance for self-improvement. Philosophy guided the interpretation of his research. William drew on both classical and contemporary philosophers to examine questions about knowledge, morality, and consciousness. Philosophy offered a framework for understanding the significance of his empirical findings. helping him connect observations to larger human concerns. By combining philosophical reflection with scientific investigation, he ensured that his work remained both rigorous and meaningful. This integration of philosophy and psychology became a hallmark of his method. Social observation remained a key component of his approach. William studied the influence of cultural norms, educational systems, and social expectations on behavior and habit formation. He observed how people respond to authority, social pressures, and peer influence. These insights reinforced his belief that human behavior emerges from a complex interplay of personal disposition, habit, and environment. Understanding these dynamics was crucial for his contributions to education, ethics, and applied psychology. Artistic sensitivity continued to enrich his work. William's ability to notice subtle expressions, gestures, and tonal variations allowed him to describe mental and emotional phenomena with clarity and nuance. This skill complemented his experimental observations and philosophical analyses, enabling him to communicate complex ideas effectively. His writings became not only scientifically accurate but also engaging and accessible, bridging the gap between academic and general audiences. Practical application remained central to William's philosophy. He consistently emphasized that knowledge should improve education, guide personal development, and foster moral growth. His pragmatic philosophy evaluated ideas based on both their truth and usefulness, reinforcing the importance of applying insights to everyday life. This principle guided his teaching, writing, and research, demonstrating the value of integrating understanding with action. By the end of this stage, William James had solidified the intellectual framework that would underpin the principles of psychology and his subsequent philosophical works. His focus on consciousness, habit, emotion, attention, social observation, philosophical reflection, and practical application reflected a holistic approach to studying the human mind. These efforts established him as a pioneering figure in both psychology and philosophy and prepared the ground for his enduring contributions to science, education, and moral thought. Chapter 4 emphasizes William James's continued development of his major works, focusing on the integration of empirical research, philosophical reflection, and practical guidance. It highlights his studies of consciousness, habit, emotion, attention, and social behavior, demonstrating how these efforts contributed to his lasting impact on psychology, philosophy, and education. By this stage in his career, William James had fully developed his vision of psychology as both a scientific and a practical discipline. He aimed to bridge the gap between experimental research and real-world applications, demonstrating that the study of the mind could provide guidance for education, personal growth, and moral development. This holistic approach combined empirical investigation, philosophical reflection, artistic insight, and practical relevance, forming the foundation of his most influential works. Consciousness remained a central focus of his studies. William emphasized its continuous, adaptive, and dynamic nature. He explored how attention directs perception, how memory reconstructs past experiences, and how emotion shapes cognition. The concept of the stream of consciousness became a key element of his thought, illustrating the fluid and interconnected nature of mental processes. By presenting these ideas in the Principles of Psychology, he provided a comprehensive framework for understanding human experience, highlighting the complexity and richness of consciousness. Habit was another core area of study. William examined how repeated behaviors influence thought, character, and moral decision-making. He highlighted the importance of conscious effort in cultivating beneficial habits and minimizing negative ones. Through this analysis, he demonstrated that habit is a powerful tool for personal growth, ethical development, and practical efficiency. His insights on habit were both theoretical and applied, offering guidance for education, self-discipline, and life improvement. Emotion remained a key concern. Williams studied the interplay between feeling and cognition, noting how emotions influence attention, memory, and action. He explored the physiological and psychological dimensions of emotion, demonstrating its central role in shaping human experience. By integrating emotional understanding into the study of consciousness, he created a holistic perspective that recognized the inseparability of thought and feeling. This approach provided a richer and more complete understanding of human behavior. Attention and memory were studied systematically. William investigated how selective attention allows individuals to focus on important information, how attention is guided by habit and past experience, and how memory reconstructs rather than merely records events. He noted that these processes are active, adaptive, and shaped by both internal disposition and external circumstances. These insights informed his understanding of learning, problem-solving, and decision-making, offering practical guidance for education and personal development. Philosophy provided a critical framework for interpreting his research. William drew upon classical thinkers such as Locke, Hume, and Kant, as well as contemporary scholars, to explore questions of knowledge, consciousness, and morality. Philosophy allowed him to contextualize empirical findings, understand their significance, and connect them to broader human concerns. By combining philosophical reflection with experimental investigation, he created a methodology that was both intellectually rigorous and practically relevant. Social observation remained an important element of his studies. William examined the influence of culture, social norms, and education on behavior and habit formation. He observed how individuals respond to authority, social expectations, and peer influence. These studies reinforced his view that human behavior arises from the interaction of personal disposition, habit, and environmental factors. Understanding these social dynamics was essential for applying psychological knowledge to education, ethics, and social improvement. Artistic sensitivity enhanced his research and writing. William's ability to perceive subtle gestures, expressions, and tonal nuances allowed him to describe emotional and cognitive processes with precision and depth. This skill complemented his scientific and philosophical work, enabling him to communicate complex ideas clearly and compellingly. His writings became accessible to both scholars and the general public, demonstrating that science and art could be integrated to enrich understanding. Practical application was central to William James's philosophy. He emphasized that psychological knowledge should be used to improve education, guide personal development, and promote ethical growth. His pragmatic approach evaluated ideas not only for their truth but also for their usefulness in everyday life. By integrating theoretical understanding with practical application, he showed that psychology could directly enhance human experience and decision-making. By the end of this phase, William James had consolidated his approach to psychology, combining empirical research, philosophical analysis, artistic sensitivity, and practical relevance. His work on consciousness, habit, emotion, attention, and social behavior provided a comprehensive framework for understanding the mind and applying this understanding to education, personal development, and ethical life. These contributions laid the foundation for his most famous works and established him as a pioneering thinker whose influence would endure across psychology, philosophy, and education. Page 4 of chapter 4 highlights William James's mature professional vision, emphasizing the integration of scientific, philosophical, and practical perspectives. It underscores his work on consciousness, habit, emotion, attention, and social behavior, and demonstrates how these studies formed the foundation for his landmark contributions to psychology and philosophy. And when William James finally published his laughing gas experiments, the world called him a madman. But one young physicist read it and wrote him a letter that changed everything. Your experience with nitrous oxide is the greatest discovery in psychology. Signed, Albert Einstein. In Part 18 you'll discover the secret love letters that almost ended his marriage, the book that made atheists pray and believers love science, and the final battle with death that made him a legend. Part 18 tomorrow, 8 p.m. sharp. Subscribe plus bell on. The story is getting insane.